Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Coleman, and I'm the Project Financing Manager for the Regional Engagement Team at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Welcome to the third session of the California Jobs First Project Financing webinar series. We really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning and learning from subject matter experts about various financing tools and strategies. We have a really exciting session this morning focused on various state financing tools that can be utilized to support high impact economic development projects in your communities and regions. Before we get started, just want to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. There will be the ability for Q&A during today's sessions. Since your audio is muted, we do ask that you drop your questions in the box, which it can be located at the bottom of your screen. After each individual speaker this morning, we'll have about 5-10 minutes for questions after each individual presenter. And then there will be time for final questions and comments at the very end of the webinar. Today's session is being recorded, and both the recording and the presentation slides will be shared with all attendees and registrants after this session. And the recording will also be posted to our GO-Biz YouTube page in the coming weeks. If you missed our first two sessions, those are currently posted to our YouTube channel, and I'll go ahead and drop links to those in the chat in just a bit if you want to go back and review those. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers for this morning. We have joining us Lina Moeller and Fariba Khoie with the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, or IBank for short. They'll be providing an overview of their financing programs. And then later on in the session, we will be joined by Allison French and her colleague Aaron Leroy, who's with the State Treasurer's Office. And they'll be joining us for the second half of that session to inform us on their financing program. So with that, I'll go ahead and give the floor to Lina for her presentation.
Thank you very much, Brian. Really appreciate the invite for the California Jobs First webinar. We're always very happy to share about our programs and collaborate to get infrastructure projects done in the state. Fariba Khoie is joining me. She's our bond finance manager, and she'll be talking a little bit towards the end of the presentation about the bond program. And I'm very grateful that she's agreed to share the presentation and move the slides along for me. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So I want to give a brief overview of IBank. A lot of people who are attending here today know a little bit about IBank. I want to talk a little bit about the full scope of IBank, what we do, and then I'll jump into the specific ISERF loan program. We'll talk about what the program is, the eligibility details, and I'll share a few examples of projects we've done and talk a little bit about our process. So IBank is short for California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank. We are a state agency. We fall under the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development called GO-Biz. Our main mission is to provide low-cost housing financing options, infrastructure financing, not housing, but infrastructure financing options for eligible borrowers for various infrastructure projects within the state. We are the state of California's only general purpose financing authority. A quick note on IBank's current focus areas. We are focused on our core missions, Firstly, creating and preserving jobs in California. Secondly, expanding access to underserved communities, being inclusive and intentional in who and how we serve the citizens of California. And we also are focused on addressing climate change. We're expanding our role in climate financing. We are investing in and enabling projects that are addressing climate crisis in a meaningful way. Next slide, please. Here are, on this slide, you can see some of our core programs. I'm going to be focusing on the first purple icon there you see, which is the Infrastructure State Revolving Fund program. But I'll very briefly touch on the other programs as well, just so you get an idea of what we do here at IBank. Our climate financing includes loans for projects that help the state meet goals to do with greenhouse gas reduction, water conservation, environmental preservation, etc. Back in November of 2024, voters approved Proposition 4, which is a 10 billion bond measure focused on increasing the state's resilience to the impacts of climate change. So Prop 4 allocates 850 million for clean energy. And we have a climate catalyst or climate financing unit here within IBank. And 325 million is allocated for transmission type programs. So currently the funding for these transmission projects, which is going to be financed under the CTARF program, that is California Transmission Accelerator Revolving Fund, is not as yet available. It's been allocated, but we're expecting the fund potentially no later than July of 2026. But I talked to our climate financing unit manager, Dylan Naidu, and they will be they're encouraging, applicants so that they can start looking through some of this pipeline, and then they will work with you directly. You can get their contact information directly from either Fariba or myself, and of course, it's on our website as well. We have a small business finance center. Their largest marquee program is called the Small Business Loan Guarantee Program. That program works with various financial development corporations in the state of California to do guarantees for small businesses. This particular unit was very instrumental to get a lot of small businesses through the pandemic. They do microloans, they do disaster recovery loans, the governor's incentives that were pumped into the marketplace during COVID. All those monies flew through the Small Business Finance Center. So they've got various different programs. They've got SSBCI. The Small Business Loan Guarantee works primarily with, as I mentioned earlier, financial development corporations that do the underwriting, and then the unit provides the guarantees for these loans. Fariba is going to talk about the bond financing. So let me jump now onto the next slide, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual details related to the ISERF loan program. It's the Infrastructure State Revolving Fund program, ISERF for short. We are not related to SRF or water boards in any way. These are funds that IBank issues, bonds that are issued by Fariba's unit for us. These are tax-exempt monies that we then revolve into a revolving loan fund. To date, we've done over $1 billion in loans. They range, they have a wide range of different types of projects. As far as eligibility, we can finance any subdivision of the state or local government, including departments, agencies, commissions. The bulk of our loans are to cities, counties, and wastewater type projects and water districts. Our minimum loan is $1 million, and we can go up to 65 million as our max. We can do JPAs and nonprofits under certain circumstances, including sponsorship from a public entity. We look at cash flow. We look at 5 years of historical cash flow for our projects. If you've got a water or a wastewater project or any enterprise fund project that looks for rate increases to pay for certain projects in the future. We do consider those. We will look at projections. Um, Recently, we've approved a lot of recharge basin type loans. And that's a very critical infrastructure for water sustainability here in California. As I mentioned earlier, these monies are tax exempt. So we have to make sure that there's no private activity in these projects. If there is private activity, there's a couple of options. The borrower would have to potentially bring in their own, money for that piece, or you can have another source like a grant or something else that can, come in and bridge that gap. Um, or on rare occasion, we could consider taxable loans as well, but those funds would not be from our ISA program monies. Typically, that would be equity from our IBank balance sheet, and that's a decision that our credit risk committee would have to make. We underwrite with a couple of different loan structures, which are based on the repayment source of the project. So typically with these type of local government projects, you've got a dedicated repayment source. So the typical project type, let's say for a police station or a fire station or roads, is a general fund. So your general fund is the repayment source. We, in that particular project type, will do a lease back loan structure. The leased asset would be, whatever's being built, the police station, let's say community center, office building of the local government. That can be the leased asset. But if you don't want to incur capitalized interest, then we also encourage you to use any other leased asset that's unencumbered that the borrower owns free and clear. So that's the general fund repayment loan structure. Then you've got the enterprise fund repayment structure where you've got water, wastewater, sometimes public safety is a separate fund. Um, we take a pledge directly on the system revenues. So let's say you're building a wastewater treatment plant or you're, expanding pipelines to connect a new housing development to the actual city. All that is eligible and that would be considered an enterprise fund project. We, as I mentioned, Prop 218 comes into play here in many of these projects. We look at projections all the time. We take our security then is a pledge on the system revenues directly. It's a very simple process. These loans, are very quick in turnaround. As a public agency, we actually do work pretty fast from the initial contact till, let's say, closing the loan. It can be as quick as 4 to 5 months. And that's our typical standard turnaround time. We can also expedite it. We can do things to suit your timeline. Executed reimbursement resolutions are required prior to taking anything to our IBank board. And that resolution has clauses that will allow you to then include costs in the project that you already incurred. So let's say your reimbursement resolution is dated October 1st. You can include expenses that you incurred up to August 1st, 60 days prior, and then after that as well, of course. So I want to go over some of the benefits of working with IBank and the ISF loan program. What are the things that we see as things that give us an edge in this program? So number one, we are AAA rated because our ISF bonds are AAA rated. So our cost of funds tend to be lower. We pass those savings on to our borrowers. Interest rates are based on the municipal index. We do provide subsidies up to 50 basis points based on 25 basis points for environmental subsidy and then another 25 basis points for community-based subsidies. So if your project has components that are addressing climate change or energy conservation efficiency or mitigating climate change, those all would qualify you for 25 basis points in environmental subsidy. And then an additional 25 basis points would be based on community-based subsidies, such as if your median housing income or unemployment rate is at a disadvantage when you compare to the state levels, then the other 25 basis points also will come into play. Just to give you an idea, because I know people are always curious about what our interest rates are, our most recent interest rate just pulled this past week for a 30-year unrated credit without any subsidies built in. The interest rate's right around 5.22 right now, and these rates, of course, change on a weekly basis. An A-rated credit is 4.64. So if you, let's say, qualify for the 50 basis points subsidy, then your interest rate is going to be for an A-rated credit right around 4.15, 4.16. For a 15-year unrated credit, the interest rate is 4.42. An A-rated credit is 3.64. So these are very competitive interest rates. They are all-in interest rates, including a small 15 basis point servicing fee. So these are all-in rates, but they don't include subsidies that you would qualify for. The other things I want to mention is you do save time because we conduct a preliminary review first. That process typically takes a month to 2 months. Standard is about 6 weeks. We send out the pre-application, you complete it, we do the bulk of our underwriting at that time. And so that helps you determine if we're going to move ahead or not. It really does save you time because you don't have to wait, for months to see where you are in the process. We are very transparent and we, keep you abreast of things every step of the way. We also provide technical assistance. Our loan officers are assigned to each loan. So you're going to, have a loan officer that you're going to be working with directly along with me, of course. And then we can answer questions along the way, if you have questions about the application and things like that. We can do 100% financing. You are not required to put in any equity. Now, if you do want to put in equity, of course you can. You can have multiple sources of financing or funding for the project. You may have another, let's say, USDA grants, or you want to put in your own money. Those all are very eligible and viable project structures. We can go up to 30 years on our terms of the loans. This is another thing I think that is a bit unusual, but we can go up to 30 years as long as the useful life of the project supports it. We don't have to compete against others. There's no wait list. We don't have any scoring mechanisms. So it's really a first come, first serve basis. And we also don't have any rounds of funding or financing because when we are getting close to running out of money, we either do bond anticipation loans, which means we finance these loans with our equity and then reimburse ourselves when we issue bonds. So we never really run out of money. We never have a situation where we have to turn you away and say we don't have money, or we're waiting till let's say a couple more months or anything like that. We try to make that as seamless as possible. We've never had an issue with our source of funds because, as I mentioned earlier, Fariba's unit issues bonds for us. And then I want to talk about our project timeline and what our process is. I touched on the preliminary review a little bit. So the whole process from beginning to end takes about 4 to 6 months. From the time we have an initial call till the time we actually will have the funds, after the loan approval. And also we can expedite that. We can do it as fast as 2 or 3 months if you want us to as well. So first we do a preliminary review. We do the bulk of underwriting at this time. We're doing all the number crunching, asking financial questions. You're completing the pre-application, which, by the way, is very streamlined. It's about 8 pages long, 8 or 9 pages. It's a lot of checkboxes and questions and exhibits that you attach. For example, your budget, your project description, your project benefits, your most recent CIP plan, and then financial statements, which we typically get from your website. So those, and feasibility studies, if you've done them, any rate study information, if it's a water or wastewater project. So those are some of the things we ask for standard. And then once we do our underwriting, we put together our credit memo for our credit risk committee, which meets every month. And many times as we are doing this month, we have a couple of credit risk committees because we've got a couple of loans that we want to take to the board. And then the credit risk committee invites you to apply, typically the same day that we present to the credit risk committee. They typically will, they may have some questions, but The invitation to apply typically comes that same day, which is just an email that we send you. Then the application itself is just one page. It's just reaffirming the pre-app that you've sent us, and you're signing on the dotted line for the application. Before we take anything to the IBank board, as I mentioned earlier, we do need the borrower's resolution. From the time of IBank board approval, you have 6 months to execute the financing agreement. We do have rate locks. We typically lock the interest rate at the time of the board approval, and you have 90 days, after which, it's at the discretion of IBank loan unit and the credit risk committee about the interest rate after that. If there's a lot of fluctuation, you may have a change, but typically we try to hold that interest rate that was approved by the IBank board. So we give you 2 years to complete the project. If you need more time, we can get an exception for another year if your project is on a longer timeline. I also want to mention that we do disperse the funds into a trust account when the loan closes. Disbursements from the trust account happen when you send us invoices. So you are making principal and interest payments from day one. You've got a principal and interest payment in August, and then you've got an interest payment in February. So these payment systems, they follow the bond, system. So that's kind of our process. However, you also make interest income on that money that's in the trust account, the entire amount. And many times that interest income is kind of washes out your interest expense. Right now, the most recent report I've seen, the interest on that interest income account is, I believe, 4.10 or 4.17% was what it was on average last month. So that's a pretty good investment in that regard. Next slide, please. I just want to go over a couple of slides quickly of examples of projects that we've done. As I said earlier, we can do projects for a lot of local governments. Local governments are eligible. The only project that's not eligible is housing. So we cannot actually build the home or do any project that's in developer land or anything like that with regards to housing. But we can do infrastructure around the housing. So pipelines, roadways, water, wastewater treatment plants, everything that you need for the new housing development is eligible, as long as the borrower is public, the repayment source is public, and the project is on public land. Those are all eligible ISAF loans. We've done a project on the slide there. You can see the city of Watsonville. This was an SB 1383 project, which is the solid waste organic disposal mandate. It consisted of a new landfill that included a greenwood waste processing plant. This project also included a piece of equipment, which was the landfill compactor. We've done the next picture there is for the Encinitas landscape roadscape type project, which includes enhanced crosswalks, raised medians, roundabouts, increased parking options, draining, and all of that related to roadways. That was a over $20 million project that was done just a couple of years ago. Then we did a project for the Tiburon Fire District. This was actually the building of a 2-story new fire station at the location. The one thing that was a little different with Tiburon is there was a measure that was passed, and the measure funds was the repayment source. So you can have sales tax or measures as your repayment sources, but we still look at that as a general fund project. So these funds are coming into the general fund. We do a lease-back transaction, and we analyze the general fund as a whole. So in other words, we will not take a pledge on sales tax revenue or measures directly. Those are just things that flow into your general fund, and then we underwrite it as a lease-back transaction. Next slide, please. This is my last slide before Fariba takes over talking about the bond unit and her program. 2 more examples here. The 29 Palms project was solar panels and related infrastructure for various buildings within the city of 29 Palms. All the buildings were owned by the city. It was a project that was just to update and put solar panels. So those are all eligible projects. We did we did a 30-year loan for them. As long as the useful life of those components match it, we're happy to do up to 30 years. Another project I wanted to highlight is the Santa Cruz project. That was a wastewater treatment headworks rehab project. It really was an important project to do. It helped with mitigating and taking care of pollution from the city that was, potentially flowing into the ocean. So those were things that it was considered a green project. It was a $26 million project that just closed again a couple of years ago. So those are some of the slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of this presentation. And Fariba, one of her last slides is kind of talking about the website and how you can reach us and all of that. I'm going to go ahead and put some of my contact information in the chat as well, and then I'll turn it over to Fariba. Thank you, Fariba.
Let's see if there are questions for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lina. That was a wonderful, informative presentation. Yeah, I do want to give a few people time to ask questions in the chat before we move on to Fariba. Um, it
I
looks like
see a
we.
question on refinance there, Brian.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and take it, Lina.
Can you please discuss more on the limitations on refinancing a loan? We can do refinance as long as it includes added infrastructure. So let's say you've got a project out there, a building that's been, you've got debt on it, and you want to add or expand the building or, add a garage or a parking lot or something like that. As long as there's new infrastructure being built, that's part of the loan request, we can do it as part of a refinance. But just a clean refinance to date is not an eligible thing because the ISO program funds are supposed to fund infrastructure being built. So that's just the one rule that we have there.
Great question. Thank you so much, Noah. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A box. If you do have any questions you want to ask either Lina or Fariba, feel free to drop them in throughout the presentation. And yeah, so with that, I think we'll go ahead and move on to Fariba, and I'll go ahead and give the floor to you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. It's prior to noon, still morning. Hope you all have day started in a great base and happy notes. And although I cannot see everyone here, but I'm happy to join here. And thank you for taking time today for joining this presentation from Lina and I. And as Brian mentioned, please don't hesitate to reach out to us either by end of this meeting or later on as we provide the contact information. And nice to meet you all virtually. Thank you, Brian and GO-Biz team, for this great opportunity. Let's talk bonds. As Lina earlier mentioned, IBank is a general purpose in various activities. On the bond side, we consider ourselves as general purpose conduit issuer. As conduit issuer, we don't do the underwriting of the bond transactions, but we work closely with different financial institutions, underwriters, and lenders, local banks. And our main role in any bond transaction is to facilitate issuance of tax-exempt financing for qualified projects and borrowers. As a general purpose, it means that we can issue a bond transaction for almost any type of financing in different categories, but housing is one of those that we cannot directly get involved unless the housing component of a project is incidental. If a project that we finance has up to 20% of the total project cost, a housing component, like we are talking about a college or school financing, and they wish to add a dorm for the students or for faculty, and the cost fits within this 20%, this is the portion of the project that qualifies for financing through IBank. We can issue tax exempt and or taxable projects, and any bonds that we issue because we are a state entity will have the exemption from state of California personal income taxes, whether it is federally taxable or not. And we can issue bonds for both public and private sector in the form of economic development or public development facilities. The P3 financing that some of you, all of you at least, might be familiar with these days are hot topics for many larger scale projects. This is the type of financing we can assist the projects. And we don't have size limitation except for the small qualified manufacturing projects that has $10 million ceiling. We will discuss this further in the next slides. And also, one of the benefits of working with IBank is that the maximum term of financing allowable with our act and policy is 50 years, 50. Although most of the projects transactions choose regularly between 20 to 30 years. And if the useful life of the project qualifies, as Lina mentioned on their side, we can extend the financing up to 50 years. We have done some bond transactions that have selected 40 to 45 years of maturity. The transactions that we can finance at bond unit can be in the form of public offering, limited public offering, or private placement. The public offering transaction is the one that requires a credit rating from at least one rating agency. And for the limited offering and private placement, this rating requirement is waived from our policy. And for both of these top transactions, public offering and limited offering, the underwriter needs to be selected from State Treasurer's Office underwriter pool. So if you are or you know a project that qualifies it in this, you were limited for selection of the underwriter from that specific list. Private placement can usually be done through the local banks or lenders, and it can cover up to $40 to $50 million depending on which lender is involved with, and they are mainly structured as a loan. We can participate in various types of financings. One of them is the public agency revenue bonds, or known as PARBs. And they apply to government facilities and entities that they don't have the authority to issue their own bonds. Some of you might be familiar with Public Works Board that acts as issuer for some of the public entities, colleges, or CDC-related bond transactions. But in our act, we have specifically defined a condition relationship for the State Water Resources Control Board, and we are direct issuer for their bonds. And beside them, we have issued bonds for CalSTRS also. And for the public agency bonds, we have done for Bay Area toll bridges as well. And the P3 applies to these type of transactions as well. There is no ceiling for the size of financing we can do. And since 2016, we have been issuing green bonds for the State Water Resources Control Board for both clean and drinking water projects. And for CalSTRS, for expansion of their headquarters building, the bond has been green also. The next category, known as IDBs, or industrial development bonds, and also included manufacturing, because the current ceiling, the maximum amount of the bond transaction we can issue for a taxable bond is $10 million. And this $10 million is not the IBank set ceiling. This is the IRS regulations. And no matter which state, which issuer is going to issue this type of bond for a select project, the ceiling and the condition regulations that we face, they will have the same, and all will be treated the same way according to IRS regulation. All the IDB transactions require volume cap allocation from California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, briefly known as CDLAC. This volume cap allocation is not fund, is not actual money, but this is the dollar amount that shows the authorization level for issuance of tax-exempt financing. CIDLAC is the only authority within the whole California that can review the transactions, certain transactions, including IDBs, housing projects, and some of the exempt facility bonds that require volume cap allocation will need to apply to CIDLAC to get that permission or authority for tax exempt issuance before IBank can move forward for consideration of approval of the financing. Beside the $10 million ceiling, there is a total $20 million total capital expenditure limitation on the IDBs that applies within 6-year period, starting from 3 years prior to the date of bonds issuance and ends 3 years after that. So if a project owner applies for a $10 million loan, it has a window of opportunity to have additional debt or additional expansion or purchase of equipment up to another $10 million in case they need it. But if they go over this limit of $20 million, IRS can remove the designation of the tax exemption. I have seen on the news from different projects from different states over the years that they have met this situation and lost the tax exempt designation. The other type of financing that we can participate is the projects related to the 501c3 nonprofit organizations, and good portion of our portfolio belongs to these projects. There is no size limitation on the financing we can do, and we talk about the no size. We have done this example that shows $20 million for the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. We did in 2014 the first financing for them, but we have done transactions up to over $400 million for museum projects. So the qualified projects, as I have listed here, include museum libraries, historic preservations, aquarium, zoos. We have not done any zoo project yet, but these are the qualified projects as they are being managed by nonprofit organizations. It could be schools, universities, various charitable organizations like YMCA, Goodwill, Salvation Army, different performing arts that we have done several of those transactions, and also energy efficiency projects like energy as a service, EEAS, that we have done 2 of them last year related to the healthcare. It can apply to university facilities or any public agency that they wish to have this type of energy project done through a P3 project. We have assisted financing those. The other group of financing that we can participate on are known as exempt facility bonds. I have included several of them, not all of them. This is a longer list. Some of them don't pertain to the type of financing IBank usually gets involved with, including the student housing, that because, as I mentioned earlier, we are not involved in the housing projects directly. But the list of the projects, the type, the categories I have listed here, we can participate. And as you may notice, some of them I have indicated that there is no requirement for volume cap. So these are naturally qualified by IRS as qualified exempt facilities. And it means that if there is an issuer like IBank that is going to assist the project financing for airport, for hangars or terminals, we can issue any amount of bonds that the project requires in the form of tax exempt as long as the project qualifies. And some of them, as you see here, if they apply to CIDLAC, they require only 20% of the total project size, the volume cap. So if CIDLAC authorizes $25 million allocation for one high-speed rail project, it means that we can issue $100 million bond for them. And in this list, you see 3 new categories. All of them up to the qualified highways and surface freight transfer. They have been old and have been added over the years. But broadband internet and carbon capture facilities, these two have been added in 2021, and they both require 25% of the project cost, the volume cap amount is they are requiring. The most recent one that has been added just by this One Big Beautiful bill is the spaceports. They are being treated similar to the airports, and there is no volume cap requirement. And this can apply to various activities related to the spaceport. But we won't go to the details of legal requirements or how the funds can be applied. This is something that, if there is an actual project, we can dive into. And this is mainly the work of a bond counsel who will need to work on this. As I pointed to bond counsel, earlier I mentioned that we don't do the underwriting of the project. So beside the presence of an underwriter or lender for the project, all bond transactions, the borrowers require to have a bond counsel, a legal person who is familiar with the public financing, and they are going to assist the borrower with structuring the transaction documents and guiding them through all the legal matters and tax issues related to the project. So this is necessary. Some borrowers may choose to hire a consultant or municipal advisor that can independently on the side assist with the financial calculations and number runs in assisting structuring the transaction to see if they are happy with the negotiation that they may do with the pricing or other activities related to the transaction. This is, I believe, the whole the subject that I would like to cover. And these are some of the examples that we have worked on the bond side. You might be familiar with some of them. Two of them in this picture are very local to Sacramento area if you are from Sacramento. The one on top on the left side, this nice building dome is in Los Angeles area. This is the California Museum of Arts and Sciences, the Oscar Museum. This building has been the old building that they have upgraded to the new codes and build this new facility. We have been here last year, September, we celebrated IBank's 30th anniversary in this building. This is one of the great projects that I had the opportunity to work on this. And on the middle and top row, we have this Getty Museum. We have done various financing for the Getty Museum and the Getty Villas in Los Angeles. The next is the Sophia or the Children's Museum or the B Street Theater. This is the financing that we have done at IBank, and they have great programmings. I have visited for different occasions. For this specific program, beside the bond transaction, they were able to apply for our loan guarantee program. This is one of the additional benefits of working with IBank, that the borrowers would be able to apply to different programs that they may qualify for their project. So on this specific one, the Sophia or the B Street was able to benefit from loan guarantee beside the bond issuance. On the second row, we have the Sigerstrom. This is one of the great projects and returning client. We have done various financing for them. On the middle, this is the SMART Museum of Science and Curiosity by the river in Sacramento by Highway 5. You may have driven by in various occasions. Again, this larger building that you see, the white, this is the old SMARTS building that they have refurbished and enhanced the facility and added the additional space. Our bank team has visited after this construction a few months ago. This is a great place for children for the science activities. The last photo here belongs to a rendering of a station in the Rancho Cucamonga related to the Bright Line West, the high-speed rail project that IBank has been working on. We issued a $2 billion bond for this entity earlier this year in early March, and we are continuing to work on but until the project hopefully is completed. So these are just a few examples, just some highlights of what we have been doing or we generally work on. Here's the last slide, giving you the opportunity to be able to communicate and reach out to us if you have any further questions or if there is a project that you would like to share the details with us. I repeat again, please do not hesitate to communicate with us if we can be of any assistance. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Fariba. Very informative, comprehensive presentation. Appreciate you sharing those case studies at the end. It's really awesome to see your bond financing program support so many amazing projects across the state, and especially a lot of cultural art and entertainment centers. So really appreciate all the great work you're doing. And thank you so much for sharing your contact information at the end. I also dropped Lina and Fariba's contact information in the chat as well
I'm
as
sorry, I stopped sharing. Maybe I just leave it for a while until people can use it. My
yeah, if you'd like to pop up the your contact info again on the screen while we get through a little bit of Q&A. Um, and thank you so much for sharing the links to your programs in the chat. Um, Someone did bring to my attention, one of the attendees brought to my attention that the ability to copy the links in the chat may have been disabled, so I do apologize for that. I think I was just able to enable it again, so attendees should be able to capture those links. But we did get one clarification question, Lina or Fariba. Looks like Noah was asking. Thank you so much for your clarification question, Noah. Noah just wanted to clarify. He mentioned that it seems like the refinancing and repayment limits may make IBank loans less competitive during times of higher interest rates. Can you please clarify why that might be?
He's asking that the refinance would be not as competitive with IBank.
Uh, During times of higher interest rate, it appears. It
So,
appears.
so to answer, the refinance, our interest rates are very competitive. So, if you're refinancing something with a higher interest rate, let's say the project that's already been completed, and then you are adding infrastructure to that project, you could refinance the whole thing at a lower interest rate. So, you could actually avail of the lower interest rates in that situation.
Gotcha.
And if I may add one additional note on this, I don't know if necessarily this applies to Lina's unit or not, but in general, sometimes I have seen in the bond unit, uh, the only reason for doing the refinancing or refunding of a prior debt is not just a saving or financial gain. Sometimes there could be certain provisions in the transaction documents or conditions that the borrower or the lender they would like to adjust or trim it or remove it. However, this specific condition could be troublesome or prevents from the smooth relationship between them. So they may contact us to do the refunding regardless of there is any actual present value saving on the result. So we have seen this on the bond side many times. So it could not be always the financial gain.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, Lina and Fariba. I hope that answers your question, Noah. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A chat. As a reminder, if you do have any questions for Lina or Fariba, feel free to drop those in. We'll have a few minutes at the end of the session today to answer any last minute questions. So with that, thank you so much, Lina and Fariba. Really appreciate all the wonderful information you shared about all the iBank programs.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next speaker who joined us. We have Allison French Toubeau from the State Treasurer's Office joining us. Thank you so much for hopping on, Allison. Allison is the Outreach and Legislation Manager at the California Pollution Control Finance Authority, or CPCFA for short. And she's also joined by her colleague, Erin LaRoe. And they'll be providing an overview of the financing programs they have available at their office. So with that, I'll go ahead and give you the floor, Allison.
Thank you so much, Brian. We really appreciate you and the rest of GO-Biz Ready team, including us in this presentation today. And I am lucky to have Erin L'Oreal here helping me by running the slides. So you'll hear me asking her to advance. So we can go ahead and do the first advance. So these are just the topics I'm going to cover. I'll give you a little information about CPCFA right now. So we're a financing authority, which means that we were created by the legislature as an entity with certain responsibilities. We are housed within the state treasurer's office as the state treasurer chairs our authority. If AB 786 is approved by the governor in the next few days, our acronym will start standing for Capital Programs and Climate Financing Authority, which better reflects what we do today, because our existing name refers to a specific category of federally defined tax-exempt bonds that we were created to issue back in the early 70s. However, between now and then, the legislature has tasked us with multiple other programs. So I just want to note that at the end of my slideshow, we will have QR codes to the web pages for each of the programs that I'm mentioning, and to our overall, or each of the programs I'm focusing on, and also to our overall web page, and then to the email address that myself and Erin and a couple other people help me staff the CPCFA outreach inbox. And we are sort of like traffic control for questions coming into CPCFA. So our job is to already have learned as many of the answers as possible to be able to respond really promptly. But if it's something that is veering into specific territory that we haven't covered before, I work closely with the program managers. So anyway, that's the reason why we ask you to just use that CPCFA outreach email. So next slide, please. So CalCap is our biggest program, highest volume, and I'm not going to go over all of these in great detail today. CalCap is a presentation in itself, but I'll just say that CalCap is risk management tools. And so when you're looking at this diagram, we're seeing on the left risk management tools for lenders for very wide array of loan purposes that they would make to a small business or nonprofit. And then you move over to the right and it gets more specific, including we are in the zero emission space for medium and heavy duty vehicles. Next slide, please. And then here we have CalCap. See, I said it's so big, it's continued onto this page. We have some sub-programs within the loan participation project, which are getting ready to launch first quarter of 2026, but they're not yet happening. And then we also have our bond and grant programs, sort of the other side of CPCFA beyond CalCap. And that's where my focus is going to be today, on the tax-exempt bond program and on the California Investment and Innovation program. And we're going to share these slides as well, so with our hosts, so I believe they'll be able to make them available to you, so you do not need to worry about trying to get your own notes or copy of what is here. It will be sent to you. Next page, please. So to talk just sort of on a broad picture, what the goals and offerings of CPCFA programs are, we are a little tough to describe all in one, sort of like how IBank has a lot of pieces going on. So the California Capital Access Program, that's its formal name, and then we have all these variations underneath it. The goal of that is to increase access to capital for small businesses and nonprofits by increasing the willingness of lenders to lend. And we do so by offering risk management tools for lenders. And sort of the big piece that we love for economic development or anybody really, out there in the community working with any type of nonprofit or small business to know is that we are a third option to SBA, which is really well known, and to IBank Small Business Loan Guarantee, which is also really well known because it has been around for more than 60 years. And although CalCap is, we're not new either. We're since 1994. But anyway, if you just remember, hey, there's this other option that if somebody's saying SBA doesn't work for them or Small Business Loan Guarantee wasn't the right fit, maybe CalCap will be the right fit. The CPCFA tax exempt program, it funds climate friendly projects with public benefit based on federal definitions. We're going to talk more about that. And so we carry that out by offering access to the tax exempt market for certain federally defined projects. We overlap a little bit with IBank, but I'm going to show you how they actually are separate. And then we'll also talk about the California Investment and Innovation Program, which is grants for CDFIs to increase the capacity and the ability of CDFIs to serve their communities. Next slide, please. So who do we serve in our tax-exempt bond program? We can work with small businesses, large businesses, nonprofits, and public-private partnerships with eligible projects. And so that's really where we are separate from IBank, is that IBank is the designated entity if it's a public entity like a city or a county or a joint powers authority that doesn't want to do their own issuance, they go to IBank. We only work with on the private side of things. And then whereas IBank is a general purpose issuer, they issue in a really broad array of categories. We are the state level entity designated to be the conduit issuer of solid waste, which includes handling, disposal, recycling, converting, water furnishing. So that's going to be like water systems. It's not like water systems for communities. It's not going to be like a water system in an industrial plant. Wastewater treatment and processing, and then carbon dioxide capture. As Fariba said, they do industrial development bonds as a whole. Those are the manufacturing facilities up to 10 million. We do them if they overlap with one of our other categories. And then we can also do refundings of projects that already have been issued and they want to refund the deal in some sort of way. It's typically to change the interest rate. Pardon me, next slide, please. So some other details about this. I do want to note that if you've ever gone to our webpage for our bond program before, one, those links won't work anymore because we have brand new URL and URLs and we have brand new content. So hopefully it is a lot more user-friendly and you'll see that link at the end of the slideshow. So we sell bonds to fund eligible projects. The projects can be located anywhere in California, except for the IDBs with that $10 million cap. The others have no cap on the amount of the bond. It just depends on the project cost and how much is determined to be eligible. So we coordinate with the applicant and their financing team to sell the bond on behalf of an applicant. And the reason we do this is because federal tax law requires that there be a public entity selling those private activity bonds on behalf of the parties that are eligible. And we are established in California code as that state level entity for those specific categories. Next slide, please. And then on the other hand, we have CalIP, the California Investment and Innovation Program. Now, obviously, CDFIs per se are not, they're the reason we're including CDFIs, CalIP in this is that they're partners that you might see on some of the projects that you're working on. So, you guys are great sources of info to help them make sure that they are using this program. So it's for eligible community development financial institutions. This program is very strongly defined in statute. So in statute, meaning it's, the California legislature decided this when they created the program, that the CDFIs need to be certified by the federal CDFI fund, and they need to be already serving California. A common question we get is if CalIP can be used to fund a new CDFI or a CDFI that already serves another state and wants to expand to California. And the answer is no, because the statutory requirements are that they already are certified by CDFI fund, which can't happen until they've been doing their work for a while and that they're already active in California. And then the grants that they receive, they can use them for working capital to fund services and operations of what they're already doing. They can also use it to increase total net assets, to increase their capacity to serve community needs. There's actually about 8 different categories, but so far in the applications, there's been affordable housing, serving low-income persons, childcare facilities, and cultural services, I believe. Another question that comes up is if CalIP or CPCFA can recommend a CDFI to fund something that somebody's, a project or goal, or can we refer, can we make the connection? Basically, sorry to say no, because we already know that when they're CDFI fund certified, that they are demonstrating they have a track record of serving one or more underserved communities. So they're all doing great, important work, but it's not our scope to make recommendations of one over the other. And then in terms of but they're getting this money and don't they need something to spend it on? They actually are required to, as part of their grant application, already explain how they're going to be meeting the program goals. So although you might see them using it, for something that intersects a project in your community, they're not getting the grant doesn't put them in the space of they need to look for an opportunity. They've already identified one. So next slide, please. So a little bit more about CalIP. So we are currently in the 2025-2026 award cycle with applications were due October 1st, 2025, because the NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability, had gone out this summer. And then the applications are being processed right now to be announced, awards announced on or before February 1st, 2026. It is a non-competitive process. All eligible applications will receive an award. And then when the program was established, by the California legislature, it included $45 million for awards. So far, $30 million has been awarded. $10 million will be awarded this cycle. And so last year, some program, what do we want to say, proponents, who originally worked with the legislature to create this program, worked on trying to get it recapitalized. And so far that has not been successful. We are hopeful that they and the state treasurer's office will be working together as we go into the second year of this legislative cycle. We're hoping to see a recapitalization request and a successful one. So next, and we do, yes, actually, perfect, Erin. So, and if you're wanting to know which CDFIs have already received awards, the CalIP webpage has an awards section. And so far, there's 2 years worth of awards up there. And so you can look up by county and see all the CDFIs that are identified as serving that county. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily having a physical location in that county, but they do have a connection with that county. And like I said, this is all of our different web pages. So, if you take a picture now, you can use a QR code, but also where it's underlined, those are links that will be live when we convert this to a PDF and send it over. That's what I have to say. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Allison. Yes, really appreciate that overview of all the great programs available through the Treasurer's Office and CPCFA. Thank you so much for including these links and QR codes. Yes, as a reminder, I will be making the presentation slides available, so should be able to access these QR codes when we convert them to a PDF. It looks like we did get a question in the chat, Allison, from Shayna. I was wondering if you could provide your contact information or drop it in the chat.
Yes, and that QR code does go to my email. So that is the
Perfect.
CPCFA outreach. And the reason we do that is I'm the only full-time person statewide for all, you saw all that array of programs. So luckily I have Aaron and two other people who work with me part-time. And that way, we get better coverage, because otherwise when I'm off presenting or something, you could send something to my email and nothing would happen until I'm done, presenting, traveling, whatever.
Awesome. Yes, I just dropped your email address in the chat for everyone to capture. And I'm also happy to make all the speakers who presented today. I'll make everyone's contact information available. So yeah, thank you again, Allison, for that great presentation. Does anybody have any questions? And if so, you can drop your questions in the Q&A function for Allison. Also, if you have any questions you want to follow up on for Lina or Fariba, feel free to drop those in, or just any general questions for myself or the GO-Biz team. Feel free to drop the questions in the chat. And if you do think of any questions that you want to ask after today's session, I'm sure all the speakers are okay with you connecting with them directly. You can also reach out to myself, and I'm happy to follow up with our presenters today. And just drop my contact information in the chat as well. All right. Not seeing anything pop up in the Q&A chat. It was that comprehensive, Allison. So did a wonderful job. Well, okay. Not seeing anything in the webinar chat either. So with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up the today's session. Thank you so much again, Allison. Thank you, Lina and Fariba, again for your presentation as well. I did want to go ahead and also mention to the attendees on the call, if you haven't done so already or are not familiar, I would definitely encourage everyone to check out the California Grants Portal. This is a platform that was developed by the California State Library. It's basically a comprehensive repository of all the funding and financing and grant programs available at every state agency in the California government. It has a lot of really useful features. You can filter to look for opportunities by agency or by economic development activity. It shows both active and recently closed funding opportunities, as well as projected future funding opportunities. And another really beneficial feature of the California Grants portal is that you can enable it to send email notices for any particular funding opportunities when they become available. So definitely encourage you to bookmark that website if you haven't done so already. All right. Well, few additional reminders. Looking ahead, our next session for this webinar series will take place on Thursday, November 13th at the same time, 11 a.m. to 12:30. And that session will focus on federal programs and incentives. And we will make the link to that available. We'll send that out in our California Jobs First newsletter. And the webinar link for this session will apply to that session as well. So, all right. Well, with that, I think we'll go ahead. I'm not seeing any questions pop up in the chat or the Q&A function. So, with that, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn. Want to thank everyone again for spending part of your day with us, and we look forward to seeing you at future sessions. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week.